I think for us, one of the most important things was capturing a moment in time. And that's a big part of what wine gives you the ability to do. And so for us, we have a pretty classic list in a lot of ways. And instead of exploring into esoteric parts of the or new parts of the wine world, we really sort of explore vintage from that standpoint, because again, it is about capturing a moment, and whether that part of that moment is tonight at the dinner table, the people you're sharing that with, but chances are you've had some other moments in time that have had significance to you, and that's really what we wanted to be able to capture, because those classic wines that have the ability to age and the ability to exemplify what was going on in the world, what the weather was like that year, how was the growing season, being able to stop and revel in that for a moment is pretty special, and think back to where was I, what was I doing when that happened. I had a friend for dinner at my house, and we graduated from high school in 1990, so we opened a 90 Bordeaux because it was a great vintage in Bordeaux. He got married in 97, so we opened a 97 California Cab because that was a very interesting and good vintage for Napa. And again, being able to celebrate that, and being able to celebrate that sort of that magic, that what is wine in that capacity. I was at the French Laundry for 8 years, and I was 24 when I started, older obviously when I left, and so there were certainly some very formative years. And the one thing that I think I would say I took the most of from my time at French Laundry was the importance of looking at the big picture, and the importance of having everybody involved in what you were doing. That it was, if you wanted to be a 4-star restaurant, it was 4 stars all the way through that process. From calling from thinking about the reservation and being attracted to the restaurant, to making a reservation there, to going through the meal experience, to leaving, that everything that you did was important, and everything and everyone was a part of that experience, from the hostess to the dishwasher to the farmer bringing us figs to the person that was dining there. When I got promoted to sous chef at French Laundry, Thomas sent me to France to go stage. And my second stop was in this town, Urt, outside of Bion in the southwest of France. And I stayed with the town vicar. And it was interesting to see the way the town came together around, I did a lot of stages in restaurants in the countryside. And it was very interesting to see the way the town came around these, grand restaurants, where the restaurants brought tourism, and they brought people, destination restaurants. You're going to bring people to dine there. You're going to bring people to stay there for the night, and they might walk around the village and get a coffee or a baguette or something, or do some shopping. And so there was a benefit for the town of having these grand restaurants there. But the town also did their part to support it. Like I said, having the vicar that, put me up for the night for, I think, €6 or something like that. It really was about the sum of many things coming together to create an experience for someone, or give people opportunities, and I think that's always, taking that very holistic, very large idea and bringing it back to food and wine. Just like when I was a young stage, it was about the narrative and the complement of the town and the restaurant. For me, it's always about the complement of the food and the wine. The idea of it really started one night rather, when my pastry chef at the time, Ann Specker, was leaving, and she came over to say goodnight. And we were putting up one of the new dishes, and I looked at it and I turned to her and I said, I bet you'll never guess where the idea of this dish started. And so we talked about it and the how and why we got to that place. And for me, the breaking it into those categories is really to give diners an idea of what we were thinking about when we conceptualize something. That's most frequently where our inspiration comes from. You know, the craft of cooking, the history of food and dishes, a particular ingredient that may be in season, you know, or something that's, you know, indulgent and splurge-worthy. You know, I'm fortunate that Michael, who you know runs the wine program for us, has been with me for 16 years. Actually, sorry, 17 years now. And so, you know, he gets a lot of what it is that we're trying to do. Our approach with the wine program is very much similar to our approach with the food program. We're not trying to shock and awe anyone, you know, we're trying to dazzle someone, you know, a little more softly. We like to find out what's important to them, what matters to them, before we steer them into a selection. As it comes to putting together a pairing, it is, you know, about giving people a series of experiences with that. And how do you navigate someone through that? And again, from the standpoint of we like the story to be there, but we like the story to be a background. You know, it shouldn't, enjoying something shouldn't necessitate understanding the story. You know, the story should add to, you know, the enjoyment. And so, you know, understanding, you know, with the wine program, you know, first and foremost, it's got to be delicious. You know, you've got to want to have another glass of it. You've got to, you know, or order another bottle of it. You know, from that standpoint. And then, you know, how do you help people connect with it from that standpoint? I certainly don't think of it as a counterpoint. I think of it much more of a narrative, and the two together. It's a shared, you know, experience from that standpoint. And I say that because, you know, I get asked, you know, frequently, you know, how do you go about pairing something? And you know, look, one of the easiest things, you know, take cheese and wine. You know, one of the easiest things I always tell people is, well, you know, if you've got a cheese, pick a wine from that region, and chances are it will work okay, because stop and think about it. If you have a shared region where you've got people, you know, creating food and raising food and coming up with dishes, and you have people that are growing, you know, grapes and making wine, there's a high probability that they're going to have a similar palate, that they're going to enjoy food the same way, and so it's going to be a natural marriage from that standpoint. So we do much more narrative than we do, you know, trying to contrast something. I would have to drink Burgundy. It has white wine, it has red wine, it has such depth and character, and the finesse of that. The part where it becomes controversial is, you know, I'm not drinking that wine in a bubble. I'm drinking that wine with someone, and more frequently it's going to be with my wife, who was born in Bordeaux and therefore likes to drink that. But for me, I like subtlety, I like layers, I like that type of finesse. And I remember I was having dinner with Thibault Ligier-Belair, and he'd opened a bottle of his Richebourg, and he said, you know, Richebourg, it has a lot to say, but you've got to be willing to listen. And that, for me, really sort of sums up, you know, Burgundy is, you know, look, if you want to, you know, if you need a wine to quaff, that's great. It's very drinkable, it's very approachable, it's very delicious. But if you want to stop and take a moment and indulge in something, it's certainly a very magical region as well.